Hello everyone, kicking off today's episode with a quick disclaimer. You might well have heard the news by now that George Russell has been disqualified from the Belgian Grand Prix due to his car being under the minimum weight limit. We did not know that when we started this episode. The news came out some way through the episode, so you'll hear us reference it quite a lot. But at least in the early stages, when we're referring to George Russell having won the race, of course that is no longer true. Hope you enjoy the show. Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, reviewing today the Belgian Grand Prix, a Grand Prix won by George Russell, a Grand Prix 1-2'd by Mercedes. Sam, what's up with that?
I love how you phrased that, Ben. Oh, that was fantastic. We're all a little bit delicate this morning, folks. All right? We're all a little delicate. Harry for different reasons.
This morning, it's 4:10, my guy.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes it is. There's your first sign that maybe not all is well. What an interesting Grand Prix we just came across. I quite enjoyed it. Quite tactical, quite a slow burner. But a lot to delve into, which we're going to do right now.
I sense this might be a long afternoon.
You mean a long morning?
Yeah, whatever time of day it is.
Whatever day it is.
I'm just going to put it, I was going to say, Stone Cold banger of a race. I think it was excellent, but we can get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that, mate.
All right, Steve Austin, calm down.
Sorry.
Stone Cold Steve Banger.
Steve Banger.
We've got your usual classics for a review episode. We've got moment of the race. We've got reviewing our bold predictions, driver of the day, worst driver of the day, all coming up later on in the show. We will, of course, though, start with the winners of the Grand Prix. Didn't look like a probability on Friday, hence why many people all around the globe decided to put Ferrari in their fantasy teams rather than Mercedes. Russell and Hamilton. Russell winning, Hamilton in second place. Russell executing a one-stop strategy, going a long way on those hard tyres. Sam, the commentary team didn't seem to think that this was going to be a fight towards the end of the Grand Prix. It most certainly was, and it was won by George Russell.
Are we all collectively a bit fed up with the commentary team today?
For goodness sake, why would it not be a battle for the win?
I thought it was going to be spicy.
Man wants to win race.
Yeah. He'll definitely let him pass, though. Definitely let his teammate pass for the win.
Yeah.
I think they thought it was going to be a lot more straightforward than it actually was, which is why he would let him by, because it was going to be caught with 7 laps to go, 8 laps to go, whatever, and it just wouldn't be worth the fight. But I didn't think it ever really shaped up that way.
No, when the gap was about 7 seconds with about 12 laps to go, 12, 13 laps to go. And I think I said in our Discord chat, I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park. I don't think that this is going to be I don't guarantee that Lewis is going to win this Grand Prix. Russell is held onto his tyres brilliantly. We've seen with so many of the pit strategies that when they've taken the tyres off of the car, they've looked at it and gone, there's so much tread left. The tyres just kept on going. Those hard tyres were ridiculously resilient. They were able to, robust was the word that I think the McLaren engineer used, which I thought was fantastic.
Martin Brundle was a big fan.
He loved it.
All over that.
He loved it. That's how you serve up a warm cup of tea for Martin Brundle, robustly. Gets him going in the morning. My point here is, Russell understood this in the morning, right? Russell understood this far earlier than anyone else, I think. He clocked onto this very, very soon that those tyres just kept on going. And famously not the tyre whisperer, famously has actually overcooked his tyres semi-regularly, can't get the most out of them, unlike his teammate Lewis Hamilton. But he pulled off an absolute worldie today. That call from him, and I think it was entirely from him to lead that strategy call. We've seen this with George a few times, this, I'm taking control, I'm the one in the car, I'm going to do this now. Sometimes it has not paid off. Today, absolutely paid off. It was a brilliant call. His defence at the end of the Grand Prix was fantastic. To maintain that gap to Lewis Hamilton between about 5 to 8 tenths of a second when your tyres are nearly 25 laps older, give or take. Sensational driving. Genuinely, I was so impressed by George Russell at the end of this Grand Prix.
I think you could tell with the reaction he had over team radio, because obviously this is the second time that he's won this year, which seems crazy based on where we were, 6-8 races ago. But obviously when he won in Austria, it was very much a response of, it was jubilation about the result, right? I feel like here it was a pure reaction to the performance that he put in as well as the result. Like he had to work for it, and it was 100% on merit as to why he did. You know, he had input into the strategy, he executed the strategy, and I think that's why his emotion really came across at the end there. Harry, your response to George Russell? I mean, two strategies that coincide at the end of the Grand Prix. I like that. We should have more. I want more.
I'm going to reiterate something that we've said already this year. F1 do be good at the moment. It's actually very good at the moment, okay? Aside from the battle right at the end, the top 8 for most of that race were just all in the same straight. I can't remember the last time that happened. It was excellent. More of that.
Covering the top 8, right? That's crazy.
Yeah. It was a great call from George, and as you said, Sam, he's done this quite a few times, and more often than not, it hasn't worked out. I think he only asks for those calls when he's in a position where he knows, look, I'm not going to do any better. I think Toto said this after the race. He was going to finish 5th, basically, and he's like, well, I don't want to finish 5th. And the Mercedes pace was good, as we saw. I want to do something different, and fair play for him for making that call. It's something that I'd say Hamilton doesn't often do himself, or hasn't done himself very often. George is definitely the one who tries to make those calls, whereas I'd say Hamilton's a bit more led by the team, which, you know, more often than not has worked for him. But fair play to George for making that call. But I think more impressive then is how he then executed it, because the pace he had was very good. I know Hamilton was still catching him, but they were saying, you know, he's catching 7/10 a lap. But by that point, there weren't many laps left, and it was like a 6-second gap, so it was going to be tight. But also how he drove when Hamilton did get onto the back of him, because he was clearly going slow in the bits where he could go slow, like in the middle sector, but making sure he was getting those exits onto the 2 big straights, down to the bus stop, and also up the straight to Leclerc. So it was a highly impressive drive, because I like I'm not saying I agreed that it was going to be let through, but I thought Hamilton was going to cruise up to him and be gone, given the pace he did have. But George drove excellently, so fair play to him.
Whilst the commentary team were mildly irritating with their constant, it's done and dusty. It's going to move out the way. It's going to move out the way. I expect to see it. It's going to move out the way. I actually did think that the idea that they had about, get Lewis past and sit George in the DRS behind him to pull him along with him, I actually thought, in theory, makes a lot of sense, and would be for the best of the team. Piastri was coming, right? He was gaining and gaining. I'm like, you screwed this, guys. I'm like, you have screwed the pooch on this one. Piastri's going to get you both. And I think they got a little lucky with the fact that the laps rang out. I think another lap, they might have been in trouble.
Even if that had been agreed, there's no way Lewis Hamilton gets in front and then just holds.
Of course. He's gone. See ya.
Yeah, I'll see you. See you never. Bye.
Yeah, lap 45, I'll see you, mate.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
So I don't think that would actually happen, but I take your point. They were playing with fire a little bit with Piastri catching them.
I think that's one of the benefits as well of having Mercedes somewhat in the fight. They haven't been in the fight for a large part of the season to this point, but the last couple of Grand Prix they have been. And because they aren't necessarily expecting a championship is potentially on the way later this season, they have a bit more flexibility to make calls like this. If they were closer to Red Bull, maybe they do play the team game and just make sure no matter what they come home with a 1-2. Here they've kind of got a bit more freedom, right, to just say, look, I mean, we might as well, like you said, Harry, go for wins rather than 5th place finishes. Let's go out for victories rather than just solid point scoring positions. I was highly impressed by George Russell. I thought he executed that strategy perfectly. And what you said, Harry, about how with Spa, and it's often the case, we've seen it before, where drivers can be very intelligent about how they use their battery and where they use their battery to effectively defend. But we shouldn't understate what a difficult job it is, because as the attacker, you've only got to get it right once. And as the defender, you've only got to get it wrong once, because as soon as you get it wrong once, they're gone. There's going to be no other opportunity to get it back based on the disparity between the tyres at that point. So George Russell has to figure out essentially straight away exactly where to use his battery. Because if he gets it wrong, that's it, race is done. So you have to not only get it right, but you've got to get it right straight away, which I think is a very impressive trait of what George Russell showed today. And hey, I mean, first 2-time winner this season outside of Max Verstappen, which
the first 2-time winner.
So weird. It's wrong.
Since Perez last year.
Yeah,
that's mad.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, that's a thing.
And I looked before this race, I looked at, all the races won and podiums so far this season. And you've got Red Bull with 7 wins, 11 podiums or something like that, something crazy like that. And then Ferrari and McLaren, of course, 2 wins, 10 podiums, 9 podiums. Mercedes were on 2 wins, 3 podiums or something like that. And now they've surged essentially to second place. It's only by poor performances at the start of the season that they're not closer to this title fight. I'm not saying that they're in it. I know Gunter tried to sneak that one into the post-race. Come on, Gunter. A championship fight.
I love Gunter, but
he's terrible at that.
Please not let him do that
He's
again.
he's
so bad.
Lewis, who was already clearly in a bad mood, was like, nah, not happening, is it?
Oh, man. Just one last point on Mercedes that I wanted to raise, because they've come away with 43 points today, obviously everything but the fastest lap. But we do know that they had some difficulty with their upgrades. Harry, should they go away 100% happy because they've got the result this weekend? Or is there still a little bit of a question of, well, we intended to go one way, the upgrades haven't really worked, but the old spec has been brilliant anyway? Like, how do you react to that?
Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Where your car is faster when it has the new upgrades off it. That will be a little bit of a concern, even if they were this good in the race anyway. That's not a good sign for when because they will need upgrades at some point. You can't just run the same car forever. Sorry, Mercedes. So I guess that'll be a bit of a concern.
Get rid of them.
Good idea, mate. That's novel. They should think of that. Yeah, so I think in that respect, yes, but at least they're then. It's not like where they were where they had a slow car and they put upgrades on. Still didn't work. At least the base of where they are now is good. So it's not like and it's very good because it won the race. So that's gonna soften the blow somewhat. But yes, I guess a little bit of a worry for them that they strapped those upgrades on Friday and they were terrible. They looked terrible on Friday.
Yeah. In terms of the rest of the podium, so Oscar Piastri couldn't follow up his win in Hungary with another one here, but he could follow it up with a podium at least and outperformed his teammate Lando Norris on the day. And of course, the finishing margin between the top 3 was ever so close. He was right on the back of both Mercedes. Sam, was it a day that Oscar Piastri can see as a positive one based on that podium, or is he going to look at instances like the pit stop where he goes too deep, probably costs him 2 seconds? That might be the race win.
I think Piastri is still at the point of his career where we can look at mistakes like this and not be too critical, right? He's still only 18 months into being a Formula One driver, and he has displayed, he's really starting to come good, I think, on the expectations that we placed upon him. After races kind of 4, 5 or 6, when he was relatively lackluster in performance against Lando Norris. You remember something like Australia, he made that mistake, ended up finishing about 15, 20 seconds, I think, behind his teammate at least. He looked well off of it. And now we fast forward to here, towards the end of the first portion of the season as we go into the summer break. Race win, podium, handily beat his teammate again. I think that overall, this third place is a very big net positive, but I think Piastri is someone who is his own harshest critic. I think he will definitely look at this. One of the things I want to talk about later is when they were in the cool-down room and they showed the replay of him essentially running over his front jackman, and he just went, And you can see, what a reaction. You've run someone over.
Shout out to that guy, by the way. What a trooper.
What a...
Oh,
God. I love that. He's like,
in fairness, that could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good effort.
I also love that in his interview afterwards, he was like, yeah, that's my first time running over the jet, man. And it's like, yeah.
As if there's going to be another time.
Yeah, well, it's like, tick off the bucket list. Once you've done it once, you do it a million times. We're in Australia now, folks, for the accent.
Yes,
I think he knows that his own mistakes have cost him a potential race win here. If the pit stop is better executed, even a standard pit stop, not even a lightning fast one, that's what, a second and a half gained. That could be enough to maybe pick up Lewis Hamilton before he gets right behind Russell. Equally, he goes off a couple of times throughout the race, right? He puts his back tyre into the gravel a couple of times when he was attacking the likes of Perez going down the Kemmel Straight. He ended up running wide, going off onto the Astra on the outside of the track. And I'm not saying that this is massive margins, but that will be half a second here or there. You don't make those mistakes. You're a little bit more clinical with these extra little finite details across your race. You make up 4 or 5 seconds. that's enough to win a Grand Prix. I'm not going to, slam him for it. I think he's got a lot to learn, and I think he's doing a great job. But he's still got stuff to develop, and that's okay.
How do you view his race, Harry?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it was a great race from Piastri. I think, as you said, the mistake in the pit stop wasn't good, and I think he'll also be annoyed in the rest of his race. His overtakes clinical. Just would rock up to the back of a car and overtake them immediately. There was no messing about. Apart from the last one, he really needed to be clinical against Leclerc, and he sort of was stuck behind him for a couple of laps, which, had he got past him a couple of laps earlier, then maybe this is a different race result entirely. So he could probably be a little bit frustrated in that. But again, and I feel like we always make this point, you made the same point, Sam, it's very impressive for the stage of his career he's at here. Like, we're talking about a couple of, they're rarely mistakes, but a couple of bit negative points to his race that mean he didn't win his second race in only year 2 of his career. So the standard he's operating at is still pretty sensational. And yeah, he was the better of the 2 McLaren drivers this afternoon, I think.
I will say, in fairness, with the Leclerc failed overtake in the first instance, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris couldn't get by Charles Leclerc in the dying stage of the Grand Prix too. So the fact that he got it done at all, I think, is a good thing for him. But obviously the pit stop error might well have cost him second or third place. We don't know. I just think the mistake is the mistake. Like, we'll just put that to one side. It's just good in F1 that it's those really fine margins that are deciding races. That's just a cool thing. Obviously, we had Lando Norris, a very similar incident in Silverstone. Today, we had, if George Russell doesn't bring up the possibility of a one-stop, Hamilton probably wins. If Verstappen doesn't take a 10-place penalty, he probably wins. It's just so brilliantly open that that it's really fine margins separating wins from podiums and podiums from non-podiums. I think it's great to see. Driver of the day. I didn't play the jingles last time, so I'm glad Harry's back.
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
We're all in a rather delicate state today, and producer Kirsty off camera has just sent us on a wild ride with her camera, and
she's lying on her bed.
Yeah. Oh, a bit dizzy. Driver of the day, Sam, have you got?
Sorry, I was just taking a photo of producer Kirsty lying on the bed like that. Going to share that at some point as well, because these little eyes poking out from under the screen. For me, it's between the 2 Mercedes guys. I think Lewis Hamilton did such a great job of controlling that Grand Prix. He executed his start phenomenally well, gets past Perez in a really ruthless but clinical way. The way he moved over going down the Kemmel Straight was so close to wiping them both out, but it was the finest margins that make the difference. Gets past Leclerc as well, excellent, and then he sits at about a 2.5-3 second gap to the Ferrari drive behind him the entire Grand Prix. And of course, it's only George Russell with his wildly bold but brilliant strategy call that beats him. I think Hamilton handily had this race. I think he was going to win it comfortably. And it was only his teammate with that call that meant it wasn't going to happen. So I'm quite torn between the 2. I think I'm going to go with Hamilton because of the overall Grand Prix, but I want to give absolute props to Russell for that strategy call and maintaining the tyres.
Contenders from my side, Lewis Hamilton for sure. Fernando Alonso, he essentially did the midfield version of what George Russell did. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for claiming that P9. And Esteban Ocon was a straight up beast all weekend, wasn't he? Claiming that. Oh, it's only 1 point. But he was great. I think he was a contender. And I hear that he and Bruno Fumin have got celebratory drinks tomorrow never mind.
Both leaving.
Yeah, but it's okay because they've got Alpine have got a brand new French-inspired motorhome. Have you seen it?
No. Have you got a photo?
I'll send a photo. It's
photo
lovely,
home.
but
it's the highlight of their season.
It looks lovely, but also
no one to operate it.
God, it's so Alpine, isn't it, at this point?
But my driver of the day was George Russell. Harry.
Fair.
Yeah, all of the above. Alonso was going to be one of my shouts. I think even before the race finished, and I was like, well, Russell's going to be second here, but he's still my driver of the day, because to even pull off that strategy in the first place and to be fighting for the win, it was enough in my books. But to win it, yeah, straight up driver of the day.
And I think we've just about got time to squeeze in worst driver of the day before the break.
Get in the bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin. Worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Harry, who was worst driver of the day?
Go on, say it.
Okay. I'm really sorry. Sergio. Okay. I didn't want to. I did everything in my power. I said you were going to win the race. We'll get on to that. But look, the Red Bull. It's clear the Red Bull was not as strong as it was here last year or the previous year, because Verstappen, even Max Verstappen was not struggling, but he just clearly didn't have this. They were on the pace, but not the same pace as the Mercedes or McLaren. But he was slow. Like, there was nothing drastically wrong with his day. He was just slow, and it's a P2 to a P8. That on a weekend where he needs this to be very good. And
that's the crazy thing that dawned on me, is that he, like you say, P2 to P8. He started on the front row, finishes P8. Last week, he started what? Bottom couple of positions.
Still P8.
And finished one position higher than
P7.
He's 17 to P8, he did.
Yeah. So
What's up with that?
I feel like I keep giving it to Sergio Perez, but that is just, I can't see past that as a worst driver of the day contender. It's just it's not good enough. And I'm not saying he should have won the race, but given where he started, they're all in the mix of the same pace here. He should have at least been on the podium, and he wasn't. So worst driver.
Don't worry, Sergio. You've been saved, at least from me, because of good old Logie Bear.
Oh gosh, Slogie Bear.
So, we'll get into reviewing bold predictions in the next part of this podcast, but I predicted he'd get in the points, and I actually think that Williams might have had the potential to, but not with Logan Sargent driving the car. He was just miles off of Alex Albon all weekend long, so I'm going with Logan in, who knows what might be his last race. Maybe. I don't know. Sam?
Losing 6 places. 6. That's too many. You can't lose 6 places in the Grand Prix when you start on the front freaking row. You lost to your teammate by 3 spots. Awful. But he started outside the top 10. You're second. He's 11th. How have you done that flip side, baby, and reverse it? You've gone the wrong way, sunshine. You can be at the front. Where's the podium? Where's the fight? Where's the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th? No. Carlos Sainz is taking an excursion route off onto the gravel, and he's still thrashed you. You are crap. That was terrible, Sergio. Absolutely awful. Slow as balls.
I think when your second pit stop strategy is just to get you out of the way. That's the sign of a bad day.
Oh, that is so demoralising.
Well, that's a nice note to go to our break on. On the other side, we've got more reaction from the Belgian GP. So we had developed almost 2 battles of 3 individuals. So we've already talked about the one for the win, where the 2 Mercedes were able to hold off Oscar Piastri. We then had 3 drivers all battling out over 4th. Pole sitter Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen recovering from 11th place, and Lando Norris, who on the day was the worst of the 2 McLarens. Let's start with Charles Leclerc, Sam. I think it was a rather unexpected and somewhat gifted pole position yesterday for him. He hasn't finished on the podium. Do you think it's an okay result nonetheless?
Yeah, I don't think Leclerc could be too disappointed with what happened here. I think we were all aligned that him picking up pole position, of course, after it was elevated from Verstappen's penalty, was an outlier. That was the anomaly. That was not the norm, not expected. I don't think even Ferrari were expected to be that far up. And actually, Carlos Sainz was very much where the car probably was on pace, and Leclerc just putting a mega lap. You see what Leclerc does sometimes on a qualifying session, he just blitzes it, he smashes it. And so actually, I think the fact that he's managed to put the car in 4th overall, he's finished in front of Verstappen, finished in front of Norris, finished in front of his teammate comfortably. Perez, who he started alongside of, is way back. I think he did a very strong job. I think the Mercedes were just better. I think It's a shame that he couldn't maybe make the call that Russell did, because you never know, something might have played out. But that was, again, a one-off call. It's not something you see every day. But I don't think he's keeping up with Hamilton. I think Piastri, once he got the pace out of that McLaren, wasn't going to catch them either. So the fact he's kept Verstappen and Norris behind him, I think he can come away fourth, 12 points, pretty happy. I think it's a pretty solid weekend for Charles Leclerc.
Harry, a lot is made of Charles Leclerc's pole position to not win ratio. And obviously this result hasn't helped that. But was this all he could get?
Yeah, to be fair, I actually meant to give him a shout out in Driver of the Day, because I actually thought Leclerc, Driver of the Week, one of the drivers of the weekend. His lap yesterday was sensational, quite frankly. That car didn't deserve to be on pole. I know it's P2, but pole anyway. And then today, I think he maximised, because yes, he did fall back to P4, but I think, quite frankly, he could have been P7. I don't think that car was very good, but he held off Verstappen and Norris towards the end magnificently. And obviously, as already mentioned, he gave Piastri a headache too in his charge through the field. So Leclerc, I think, was pretty stunning. And once again, just a very consistent result. I know it's P4, but a very consistent result, which is why he's doing so well, despite the fact that he's only won one race and other races have gone terribly. He's still, when he's in the contention, he's picking up big points. So yeah, great race from him.
That car had no right being on pole position. That car had no right being in second place after Lewis Hamilton passed him. That car had no right to beat both Red Bulls. P4 is a great result for him. I thought he did a very good job. And like you say, Harry, he probably was worth a shout in Driver of the Day. And like you also say, Driver of the Weekend, based on the qualifying lap he put together yesterday. I don't think there was anything more in this. I was surprised he was able to hold off both Verstappen and Norris towards the end, because I think to finish fourth place in what I think was probably the fourth fastest car this weekend, that's good going. So I think he's had a very good day.
Have you guys seen that this is now the sixth Grand Prix in a row where the pole sitter has not gone on to win?
Wow.
Yeah, I've got it down here, folks. Canada, Russell pole, Verstappen win. Spain, Norris pole, Verstappen win. Austria, Verstappen pole, Russell win. Silverstone, Russell pole, Hamilton win. Hungary, Norris pole, Piastri win. Belgium, Leclerc pole, and now Russell win.
Don't get pole, folks.
Don't get
That's
pole.
Lesson of today from this podcast. What about Max Verstappen and Lando Norris? So we've typically seen these two drivers fight over first and second place. Today we saw them scrap over fourth place, and neither of them got it. Obviously, Verstappen was making a recovery from 11th on the grid. He makes up 6 positions to finish P5. Lando Norris has another difficult start to a Grand Prix and ultimately ends up 6th place. What did you make of their two races, Sam?
Verstappen looked like he was having a tricky time of it. And actually, it definitely looked harder to pass through that top bunch of cars than expected. You really need to have some kind of tyre offset, undercut ability. I mean, you saw it with Hamilton getting on the back of George Russell, right? He got up there and his tyres were 20 laps faster, newer rather, and couldn't get the move done. Was unable to get that move done. We saw it multiple times. Piastri and Leclerc has already been mentioned. When Perez and Verstappen were both behind Russell earlier on in the Grand Prix, neither could get through as well. It seemingly was very difficult to get the moves done here. And I think Verstappen was definitely a victim of that issue as well. Everything seemed to go a little bit wrong for him. When he tries to do the undercut, he ends up coming out right behind Yuki Tsunoda, who just does not get out the way for an entire lap. And he has no reason to either, but he couldn't get that move done. Then he can't get past his teammate for a while George Russell is, and him are battling. It was a bit of a struggle for him, but I think most importantly, he beats Lando Norris, who is the next driver in the Drivers' Championship. He stays further ahead of him than he started the weekend with.
Ow. How does he keep doing it?
He's extending it again. The guy's extending his lead again. At the end of the day, you've only got to fight the bloke who's closest to you in the championship, and he's doing that. He's done it again. Norris, on the other hand, start calling him the bottler at this point, because the bottle job Norris can't get a bloody start to save his life.
Goodness me.
Yeah, come for me. See why I care. When he actually gets a good start, then I'll bloody back down. It's embarrassing at this point. Come on, lads. You give it all the big chat. Trying to mouth off to Lewis Hamilton as well around Hungary. Oh, you had a car for 7 years. It's our turn. Shut up with your whinging. Get a good start. Put in a good performance. Got absolutely mullered by your teammate. Only good thing you did was get the fastest lap. Not good enough, Norris. He was up there for worst driver of the day for me. If Perez wasn't an absolute stinker, Norris was poo.
Honestly, Hungover Sam is just sassy Sam. It's great.
I'm tired.
What were your thoughts on both of their races, Harry?
Norris, please, can you learn how to just do starts well? I think his start was okay, but then he decided to just go in the gravel of the exit of La Source.
Track stops there, mate.
Typically not a good idea.
No, put it in the book.
The source of your failure.
Good stuff.
Can you give him Lance Stroll's number?
Yeah, because he's the GOAT at starts.
God, just flies.
But only that.
Poor qualifying is key, though. That's why,
Give him like 3 lessons with Lance Stroll, and Lando Norris will be prime Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, but it'll start from 17th every race.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, then which compromised his race, and then it just didn't really work out from there. I don't think he was particularly slow. I just think he compromised it again at the start, and the strategy didn't really work out for him. The going along worked in the sense that he caught back up, but then he couldn't do anything with it, so he just sort of ended up stuck there. And then later on, they didn't really do that same offset, so he didn't quite have the same pace advantage anyway, and then he was just stuck behind Verstappen. But to be honest, again, I think that just all came from the start. So a bit of a shame for Norris, especially considering Verstappen started behind him and finished in front of him. That's not good for a championship battle.
In a car that I think is worse.
Yeah, the McLaren was definitely quicker than the Red Bull. At least in race pace. So Norris will be disappointed with that, and for Verstappen, again, it probably went under the radar somewhat, but I actually think it was quite a good drive from him, because I don't think the Red Bull was amazing, and the strategy. I know he didn't get past Leclerc, but I think he was pretty solid in that last stint to keep Norris behind. Again, probably helped because he was DRS'd by Leclerc, and that helped things. But I think it kind of, we heard GP say you need 10 of your best laps here to get to the end, because I think they were worried about Norris. And as not great as it was for Norris, I think actually Verstappen was pretty impressive, especially towards the end of that stint. And very different mood compared to last Sunday, despite the fact it was actually for a worse position, but way more measured, mature. Like, can I have a go? And GP's like, yeah, go and have a go. It was like a different person.
They put him in timeout, didn't they?
Yeah. But
calm down.
But that's the Max Verstappen we've kind of got used to, rather than the one we saw in Hungary, where he was clearly frustrated and it was a bit more, 2018, 2019 Max. This was a much more measured Verstappen, and just playing the game, and as you said, extending his championship lead again, even though he finished fairly way down the top 10. So yeah. Sorry,
someone's playing a rock concert outside my window.
Goodness me, Maidenhead, calm down. Anyway, Sam's going to investigate. Over to you, Ben.
I will gladly take the baton. Weirdly, we were somewhat right about something. Like, we were weirdly correct yesterday in our qualifying review when we said that McLaren had potentially underperformed a little bit based on where they could have qualified. And if one of the McLarens gets a poor start and Verstappen gets a pretty good start,
we literally said it.
They could be together within a couple of laps. That happened. And look, I mean, that's the combination of not being on the front row, which potentially they could have been, and Lando Norris getting another poor start. He really does need to sort this out. I think he had reasonable pace, but it was a scrappy Grand Prix from him. The attempted overtake early on the driver that I can't remember was very scrappy. Where it just
Sainz, I think.
Yeah, it just doesn't work out at all. I thought that was poor. And he had, I think he had reasonable pace, but based on, and this wasn't just relevant for him, but based on the DRS being shortened on that Kemmel straight, it was more difficult to make overtakes into Les Combes than we've seen in the past. And I think Norris just couldn't make that progress. Like you say, he had the tyre offset, but just nothing he could do with it. From Verstappen's perspective, I think it was pretty good. Obviously, it's somewhat in comparison to the last couple of years, because this has become a trait of his to take a penalty at Spa. And the last 2 times he's gone ahead and won it quite comfortably. Today, he doesn't get anywhere near winning the Grand Prix, but equally, after he clears the couple of midfield cars that were almost inevitable, and he's on the back of that top 8 battle, it was fairly apparent that actually he was going to have to really work hard to make any progress. So the fact that he's seen off 3 of those drivers I think it's pretty good. He'll have much better weekends, but I think if he was reflecting on this race, he can probably say, I did what I could do there. I don't think there was much, apart from maybe Charles Leclerc for fourth. I don't think there was anything else out there for him.
Yeah, the Leclerc move was the only thing I would have expected of him that he didn't get done, if I'm honest. I don't think he was ever touching the podium.
The two distant drivers in terms of that top 8 battle were Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez. So Carlos Sainz was the only driver that opted to start on the hard tyre. So obviously he went longest, but ultimately sort of reverted to the same strategy as most of the others around him. So he was quite a distant 7th. And Sergio Perez, of course, started on the front row. Verstappen was about to overtake him, you were suspecting, before he came into the pits, and was essentially a non-factor until they put him very late on soft tyres to get the fastest lap, which he successfully did. What did you make? I mean, we've already said a little bit about Perez, I guess, Harry, but what did you make of, Sainz and I guess his strategy, because they were the one driver and one team to do something a little bit different from the start?
Yeah, I thought the strategy was worth a go from Sainz's side. It didn't really pay off in the end, but to be honest, I think Leclerc was so good he outdrove that car. I thought Sainz was actually, I know he had his little travelling trip into the gravel, or a travel, as that's now known.
Trip into the gravel, abbreviated to travel.
But I thought he actually had a relatively solid race, because like you said, Ben, that Ferrari didn't deserve to be A on pole, B in 4th place by the end of the race. I think that was more Leclerc, but that's not to say Sainz did a bad job. I think they tried something different with his race. It didn't ultimately really work out, but actually I don't think it made it any worse anyway. So it was a fine afternoon. I think he was just sort of driving that Ferrari where it belonged, whereas Leclerc was up further than it should have been. So I thought it was fine for Carlos.
Sam, what did you think of Sainz's race?
I was a bit disappointed. After
really is sassy Sam today. I hate everything.
He's back.
You're not angry.
I was just disappointed. And I'll tell you one for why. It's because
that's a niche one.
That's back. He had the best tyre. The hard tyre was the optimum race tyre to start on. You could rag that tyre about all day long. You could push it till the cows come home, and that tyre would give you what it needs. It had purchase. It was robust, to quote, again, the engineer. And I just think he should have been belting it off. When he got into the lead after everyone had done their first stop, extend. The tyres feel good. You know what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to not drive much quicker. I'm going to fall into the gravel. I'm going to lose 3 seconds. I'm going to be drastically undercut then because of that. And then I'm going to stop early anyway and go into the strategy that everyone else is on. Commit to it. Commit. His pace was fine. Wasn't anything special. He drove a fine race. Nothing electric. But I actually think he had the best strategy to start with. I think if he leant into it, if he really optimized it, I do think there was more there for him that he could have done. I think if he essentially done the reverse of what George Russell did and hard tyres all the way to about lap 31, 32, mediums, I genuinely think there might have been a chance that he could have been in that fight with Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, that group as well. But he was a country mile behind.
I agree. I just put more emphasis on it being the team's fault.
Totally.
I don't know what they were doing. They had the strategy right there in front of them. I agreed with the decision, by the way, for Sainz to start on the hard tyre. Try something different. They're the only ones in that, what would be top 8 to do something different. Great. Just extend it. Like that tyre was surviving quite well. You get to the point where you're past lap 20 and suddenly a one stop becomes a real possibility. And then I was so surprised when they boxed him. I couldn't understand what they were doing. They then go to the medium tyre. So I was like, okay, they're going to go quite long on this medium tyre and they're just going to have a very quick last stint. They are playing for a safety car on both the first and second stint. They did like 7 laps on those medium tyres. What was the point?
Yeah.
He's then put out in the middle of nowhere on old hard tyres. I just could not understand what they were going for. Like it's like they started off on the right path and then just veered off some random direction because, I don't know, saw an advert for some pizza or something. And I'll go that way instead. Like, what are you doing?
Do you think Lewis Hamilton's looking at this and going, crap, we've got a 1-2. And my guy who I'm replacing hasn't got a strategy to save his life.
Why do you think he was so furious after the race?
He's like, oh no, I'm not going to the result. I'm going to my future.
He's seen Charles Leclerc pull off a great performance to finish 2 positions lower than him.
Woo! We're a car that he bested constantly. Yeah.
Should we do big brain strat?
Yeah.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
What you got, Sam?
Well, we just spoke about it. Carlos Sainz being in the middle of nowhere. You may as well put him in a field and watch him mow the lawn at this point because he was so in the middle of nowhere.
Gravel.
Yeah, mow the gravel, mate. Travel around, as Harry would now say. Because obviously it might have been more productive for him. I can't. I'm not going to dissect it any further, but that was pants.
I'm going Ferrari, just a different Ferrari because they always give us so many options. Charles Leclerc, he stayed out slightly longer than a couple of the people around him.
This is good.
I think we should extend. Green tick. Good point, Charles. I like that. Good thinking. Maybe you should extend. Cut to Charles Leclerc coming into the pit.
Literally 5 seconds later.
Yeah. I just thought, yeah, that's very Ferrari, isn't it? Let's extend. Box.
Yeah. If we are being undercut, please let's extend. No.
Box. Yes, we agree. And box.
Granted, Ferrari do have a great history of awful strategic decisions at Belgium. If you remember the classic from a couple of years ago where they decided to pit Charles Leclerc late on to try and get the fastest lap and just didn't happen. That was a good one. I like that one.
Well done, Ferrari.
Yeah, so that's 2 different Ferrari big brain strats. What have you got, Harry?
I mean, they're probably the ones I would have gone for, the Sainz one especially. I was also going to shout out RB for starting Daniel Ricciardo on the soft tyres for really no inexplicable reason. Like, what? Why? And then on the slow, I guess because the tyres went off quicker for him, but also pitting at the same time. It didn't offset at all. He was just pitted at the same time as the other medium runners, which you might as well just start on mediums and be quicker at the start.
RB literally went, oh, that worked well in Hungary.
Yeah.
Let's just do it again.
Yeah. How can we really annoy Daniel Ricciardo again? No.
Give him another bag strategy.
Yeah, anyway, I'll go for that one.
Quite a good strategy. He should have just executed
that,
to be honest.
Benjamin, come on.
Oh, Ben hates Daniel Ricciardo.
I'm only joking.
You should see what he wrote in our schedule.
Let's find it.
No.
Go.
That was joke. Yeah, that'll do it for Big Brain Strat. Should we review some bold predictions before we get a break?
Sure.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. I've already revealed mine from earlier, which was, of course...
Have you got the abacus out, Ben?
I actually haven't unwrapped it.
Come on.
We've got Sent an Abacus by lovely F1 Swifty by Jamie in our bit. You can watch us unbox it in our beer with breaking on Patreon. It's marvellous. Ben not using the tools he's given.
Well, I just didn't think it was worth opening based on...
With nothing to do.
Didn't get it right. It just seemed like a waste.
What do you mean? Someone's getting points, aren't they?
Just pretend to move one across. Nope.
You should have one at the bottom that is races we haven't scored points on, and that should just tick up.
There's not that many there. I said Logan Sargent would score points. He finished 19th. That doesn't score points in the world of F1. Harry, what was your bold prediction?
I said... Well, I started it by saying that we'd have another different winner, so immediately it was wrong, and that different winner would be Sergio Perez, which was even more wrong.
It was a good start. As in, second on the grid.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. I thought you meant... Well, no, because George Russell's already won.
Both points were wrong.
Yeah. No, I see what I mean. Yeah, well, after yesterday, I was like, Sergio, come on. And then he did not.
Then he heard about your bold prediction and said no. Sam, what was yours?
Mine was that McLaren would repeat their performance in Hungary and get another 1-2, making it 2 in a row for the first time in God knows how long. Only one of them got a podium and Lando Norris was poo.
I saw a 1-2 today.
Yeah, wasn't McLaren though.
I actually meant to. I did say, I just think Kirsty's edited me. I think she's
sabotage.
What we should have said though was that this was the closest non-safety car finish between the top 3 for 8 years. 1.173 seconds. Yes.
Gosh, that's excellent.
What was the last one?
I actually, annoyingly, I don't have the race. I've just seen the statistic of 8 years ago, 2016. Oh, is it going to be Hamilton pushing Rosberg back in Abu Dhabi?
Probably that's what it is, right?
Yeah, surely.
Him, Rosberg, and Vettel, because they were all.
I was literally in a car park at the end of that Grand Prix.
Anyway, we'll take our second break on this episode. We've got some more teams, some more point scorers to discuss right after this. Well, Fernando Alonso, he's doing his best, isn't he?
Goodness me.
That Aston Martin just not quite on the pace of the top 4 teams, but he does at least come away with the grand total of 2 points for 9th place. I mean, I say it somewhat sarcastically, but genuinely, Harry, that was probably his version of a P1 today, right?
Yeah, I mean, that Aston's not capable of being any further up at the moment, but he beat everyone else on that, as you say, the same as Russell, on that one stop, which it wasn't the quicker way to do it, but obviously if you're being excellent as a driver, which George Russell and Fernando Alonso were today, then you can pull it off and come away with the result. It's a shame for Fernando, it wasn't 25 points, it was 2.
Did they secretly planned it in one of their George Russell, Fernando Alonso flights or parties that they have?
Inevitably, yeah.
Yes.
Let's do a one stop at the next race.
With Alonso having a massive cigar, because he seems to always have that every time they have a photo together. Have you seen his latest TikTok, by the way? You must have done, Harry, because surely you must be something aware.
They're off. They're unhinged. I
love the one where he just walks out, puts the camera down, runs into position, and then walks through the frame. What is that? 1.4 million likes.
Sure. But no, Alonso was really good today. I think it completely flew under the radar. You didn't see him all afternoon. Tell me a time we saw Fernando Alonso on screen.
Well, I think the whole point was because he didn't have to overtake anyone to get the position.
He was never at any action point.
Well, he just stopped once, didn't he? So he was there the whole race, but no one got near enough to him to create a battle.
So yeah, I thought it was an impressive drive from Alonso. Again, I think that's probably one of his best races this year, and it's a real shame that it's for basically nothing.
I did want to give on the Aston Martin side of things just a small shout out to Lance Stroll, because I don't think his pace was particularly great today, but he did a very good job of essentially backing up Fernando Alonso. So for a long part of that second stint of the final stint, Lance Stroll was in 10th place, Fernando Alonso in 9th place, and Lance Stroll was essentially just holding up Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon. Now he fades away and only finishes 12th place. So he didn't have great pace. Alonso was definitely the faster driver, but equally, Alonso's result, I think, was helped by what Stroll was able to do earlier in the Grand Prix. Alonso, I thought, did a very good job. I'm not convinced that Aston Martin was actually the 5th fastest car this weekend. We had Stroll complain about how fast, how slow the car was in a straight line. And let's face it, if Lance Stroll is complaining about the slowness of a car in a straight line, Fernando Alonso's probably not too happy about it either. So I don't know. I'm not sure that car was actually genuinely the 5th fastest car. So respect to Alonso for getting the 2 points.
Do you think Alonso? Sorry, I was saying, do you think Alonso was so furious about the strategy in Hungary? He's like, well, I'm doing the least amount of stops possible now.
If I don't have to see you, then I will be okay.
I'll do the legal amount required, and that is all.
Do not talk to me or look at me or speak to me or touch the car more than you legally have to. Thank you.
What is box?
Yeah, I only want round things, so they go on the car and then you leave me alone. Considering that it's his birthday tomorrow, I imagine that he's probably quite looking forward to kicking off the summer break with a big summer blowout. And to get away from this 2-point Aston Martin, which he's dragging around. I think he did a really, really good job. He won Formula 1.5, which is what it is at the moment, right? No normal car back there is getting into that top 8 if everyone finishes at the moment. You've really got to be quite sublime with your ability. He did everything he could. There's literally nothing else he could have done. And I agree, Ben, that you brought up Lance Stroll. I think he was a real team player. And if you can't be there on pace to pick up points or to really, do anything major, help your team out to get the most that you can. And I think that's exactly what he did. I think he was a really useful part of the Aston Martin team today.
Side point. It's excellent that Formula 1.5 is now 9th downwards, because there was a time it used to be like 5th downwards.
That's a fair point.
We've improved.
Yes.
It's going the right way.
The other drivers scored points today. Big Esteban Ocon. Love that. Inspired by the new livery, of course. Actually made a lot of overtakes. You can keep the Renault engine. You're allowed to do that.
No, they have to get rid of everything get rid of everything until it's all gone. There's nothing that makes it look like an Alpine anymore. Drivers, team principal, engine.
Yeah. They're just dismantling it bit by bit.
Yeah, get rid of it all. Burn it to the ground.
Throw it away and there'll be another car, we promise, at the end.
It's been a few dodgy races for Alpine, but they seem to be a bit better here, Harry. I mean, we know that Ocon was in the top 10 in qualifying as well, so it's not like he got there out of sheer luck. Like, he qualified there, he finished there. Some good pace.
But it makes no sense. Why would it be good at this track? Because it's so slow in a straight line.
Nope.
I
don't get it.
Why?
Can I just say as well, I know they are so heavy, they're like a London bus. But stop pretend. I know they had a special livery this weekend, but what the livery they advertised versus the livery that we got is not even comparable.
Where was all the red?
There was none. I was like, there's less.
3 red stripes.
I saw a picture of it come out on the Thursday, actually in Spa, and I was like, there's less paint on it now than there was before this weekend. It's a special livery to be lighter. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're sponsored by carbon fiber.
Maybe that's why it went better. I don't know. But yeah, Ocon especially was pretty impressive this week. I just really didn't expect them to do that well this weekend. So this confuses me somewhat. But maybe it was just Ocon being excellent. They're just winging it race to race, aren't they? They're just rocking up and going, we're okay this weekend. Or
1-2 in Monza.
Yes.
Can we do a new power unit, please?
Yeah. It's a strange one, but I mean, again, considering where that car's been, where that team's been, to come away with the point is actually pretty good. So fair play to Ocon. I think he drove well and executed that strategy pretty seamlessly.
Sam, Ocon P10. I mean, obviously, none of the top 8. There weren't any retirements there, so it is only good for a point. But equally, it's a good showing.
Team's like a bloody yo-yo. Up, down, spin it around, do a cool trick. Yeah, I don't really know what Ocon could have got out of this. They were not as fast as Alonso. The strategy wasn't as good as Alonso's strategy. I think they did really well to hold off the likes of Stroll, who was coming through. Of course, you had Albon, who I think was actually looking pretty pacey today. The fact that Ricciardo couldn't get near them either, and he had that very different strategy. Both Haas drivers kept at bay as well. I actually think Gasly was quite disappointing. And I think it was a shame that he ended up so far away from Ocon overall. Not even 11th or 12th. The fact I think he was 14th or 15th is where he finished yet. So to be that far down does need to be mentioned. It's a poor showing from Gasly. And he at the start of qualifying, which we watched together, we were commenting how we were joking. Oh, Ocon's biding his time. He's biding his time, right? But really, Gasly was the stronger driver up until literally the last rung of Q2. And from that moment onwards, when Ocon got into Q3, Ocon was better, consistently better. I don't know what happened. Don't have the setup twigs. I don't know, in the dry conditions, he felt a bit more comfortable, but he just seemed to be better. And it was a really good showing for them. So really glad that they've signed him on for next year.
I've got some really banterous news.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
George Russell's under investigation for his car being underweight.
Alpine. Couldn't be us.
Alpine looking at them eating a double cheeseburger like, not us, Chief.
Wonder.
I will double check to see if he's in my fantasy before telling you what I think about that news.
He is in mine.
He's in mine.
Let's keep that result, please, F1. Thank you.
To be fair, I wouldn't say no to Piastri getting elevated as well. He's in my team as well.
Anyway, Esteban Ocon.
Race winner.
Yeah. Just top 9, throw them all out. I thought he was brilliant. And actually, I think Alpine somewhat fumbled this because I think he should have had 2 points for 9th. I think he had the pace to beat Alonso, but I don't think they were great strategically. So whereas you had Alonso and Aston Martin very much go down the we're only stopping once route, or maybe just Alonso saying that and the team going, well, we can't really do anything about it. And then you had Daniel Ricciardo, and I didn't mind the Daniel Ricciardo just box as early as you can technique. Alpine kind of seems somewhere in the middle. Like they were very slow to react to some of the other teams coming into the pits. and it caused Ocon to have to make a lot of overtakes just to get back to where he was. So I think roughly he finished where he should have done. It was just the strategy, I think, made him work a little bit more for it than he needed to. But yeah, this was a far better result and a far better performance than what we've seen in recent Grand Prix. One driver who just missed out, Daniel Ricciardo. Now, obviously, Yuki Tsunoda had the 732 place grid penalty, which meant that he started in Antarctica. But Daniel Ricciardo had a far better starting position. Was in the points for a good chunk of the Grand Prix, but narrowly just outside. He might have 10th place now. Who knows? What did you make of his performance nonetheless, Sam?
I thought Ricciardo did well. I thought his qualifying ended up being a bit disappointing, and I think that he should have been in Q3 properly. I think he let himself down on that final run there. Just decided didn't fancy going out at the right time. You know, they took a leaf out of Alpine's book apparently, and when that's the right way to run things. But then in the race, his pace was pretty good. I think points were on the cards, and I do think that if it wasn't for the bizarre choice of tyre situation that they went for, I think he probably had the ability to beat Ocon overall. I'm not sure he'd have got Alonso with Stroll's help, but I do think that final point is on the cards. And you never go. Now with maybe Russell being disqualified, which looks pretty likely, he might pick up a 10th place, which I think he deserves. He was comfortably better than Tsunoda as well all weekend, even with, I know, the penalty being applied. I don't think Tsunoda had a lot of pace this weekend. I really don't think he was doing well. So yeah, it's a good weekend for Ricciardo. I'm sure he'll go away into the summer break, well, at least feeling a little bit positive. It's nothing to scream about, but it wasn't a bad session.
Harry?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid race from Ricciardo. Currently missing out on a point, but as you say, may well be getting one after all. But I thought, fairly solid. And the strategy he had at the start was a bit odd. And I think he did well to not lose out more. But yeah, I guess qualifying is the only thing you'd criticise him on. But as you said, Sam, I think his pace over Tsunoda was good. It was a good chunk better. So it's a solid race from him. He might have hoped for maybe one place better, but again, I think maybe that's just the way the strategy went for him. But who knows? This is such a weird one. This could be his last race in a V carb in a Minardi, and it could be his last race ever, or it could be his last race with V carb and he goes to Red Bull, which is the most bizarre situation I think I've ever heard of. So we'll see what happens over the summer break. Inevitably, it will be announced on a Thursday. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good race, and kind of he's finished the first half of the year way better than he started it, which for Ricciardo I think has been important.
Yeah, that was a real interesting strategy call to go with the softs. But given that Pirelli essentially laid out two strategy options: medium, hard, or medium, hard. Soft. I don't hear the word soft in that.
Soft.
Okay, Sam doing a great impersonation of RB because no one else thought of it. Everyone else went with the mediums or the hard tyres, and they just went, let's chuck on the softs because that's something we do now. This is our team. It wasn't really, like you said earlier, Harry, it just wasn't really worth it, was it? Might as well just start on the mediums with everyone else. I think they did an all right job. They were okay. And I think this was about where they deserved to finish. I think Ricciardo was pretty good. He was far better than Tsunoda was, even with that penalty. But yeah, I don't think this wasn't one of their absolute best weekends, like pure performance-wise. Otherwise, maybe they can find their way to more than just 1 point or more than just 0 points, depending on what happens with Russell. But yeah, I think it was a solid performance from him. Should we take our final break on this episode? We've got moment of the race right after this. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the final part of today's episode where we will go through our moments of the race. We have some Discord submissions coming up very shortly. Before we get there, though, what did we give as our moment of the race? Sam?
I spoke about it already, but it actually, despite being a really, really good Grand Prix, which the drama apparently isn't ending because this Russell DQ is looking more and more likely as I'm reading it online, I'm going to give it to Oscar Piastri's reaction to himself running over his own Frank Jackman, which I just thought it's so Piastri. The guy doesn't say a lot anyway, but just watching himself run someone over and just going, it's such an iconic reaction. It's like, should do that again. Anyway, so I also kind of feel like he looks around the room to be like, anyone else notice that? No, we're good.
I think I got away with that.
Got away with that one.
You didn't see anything.
Into the bush like Homer Simpson he goes. I thought it was so comical. He's really up there for me as a bit of a character. I love him at the moment. So yeah, great stuff. That's my moment of the post race.
I'm going Piastri as well, but for the near overtake and the overtake on Leclerc, because I thought Leclerc's defense on Piastri was very good in the first instance. I don't think it was poor in the second instance, by the way, but Piastri's move around the outside of Leclerc I thought was very tasty. So I'll go with that. Harry?
I had that one down. The Piastri Leclerc move was filthy. The other one was Lewis Hamilton coming over the radio saying there's something between his legs and then refusing to elaborate any further.
We know what you're doing, Lewis.
Come on.
We've all been there, mate.
2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't hear me calling up everyone and going, guys, there's something between my legs.
Thank
Put
goodness.
the phone down.
Thank goodness you don't.
Thank goodness.
But just
that does sound like something you'd do, though.
I might start doing it.
Please don't do that.
Don't do that.
But just there was nothing else. There was just that message. The team didn't say anything. Hamilton didn't say any more. We move on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just let them know.
Do you think it was actually the part of the car that made it over the weight limit that wasn't in Russell's car, and that's why he's disqualified?
Yeah, he's got a 5 kilogram weight between his legs.
Just chuck that in there. That'll get it
Dumbbell
over.
from the gym. Ugh.
Please don't say Lewis Hamilton has a 5 kilo weight.
Speaking of filthy moves, Bottas and Hulkenberg as well. Round the outside through the Lacombe chicane, I thought was absolutely sensational. Mugged him.
A good old Valtteri Bottas.
He's trying.
Really is trying.
Bloke's trying.
Can I also ask, this probably should have gone on Big Brain Strat, why did they pit him on like lap 36 or 44?
Know.
What for?
Well, I thought they were just doing the same as Aston Martin, then decided,
Nah. But that's the worst of both worlds. So why would you do that? Why would you keep him out that long and then pit him?
It's because Seidel's gone. They have a clue what they're doing.
No, it's Mattia Bonotto's strategy.
Yeah, it's
certified.
immediately.
oh, no.
Also, just to say as well, I thought it was the DRS zone, which was shortened this year, was perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Bang on. Keep that spar. Don't do anything with it. Leave it
We
alone.
had this exact conversation with our historic race review, didn't we, about the 2014 Bahrain review that we did, about how the battles always ended up being through the corners because DRS works so well with, you don't overtake with DRS, you have to get it done in the braking zone. And that was like this race, which was great.
Sorry, where can you hear that?
That was a nice little plug, mate.
We actually have another site that we make content for, which is a paid-for site. The link's in the description. It's called Patreon. There's 3 tiers. It's great value for money. Ben,
How much?
Well, I was going to say, have you spoken to this gentleman that's appeared on the podcast? How much would you pay for all that content, mate?
Oh, I don't know. I'd pay something like $12.
$12 seems fair. And this other man, what would you think?
$12? No, because this content is so premium and quality. I think it's at least $2,500 a month.
Well, I don't want to blow your socks off, Sunshine,
Please do.
but it's $12 for the most expensive tier.
Gosh, they're gone. There go my socks.
No socks for you. Sockless.
You get out of here.
Price is Right player ever.
How much do you think this car is? It's got to be at least £4 million.
Hang on, I just need to go.
Ford Focus.
I need to go retrieve my socks. I paid £100 each for those.
Very good. It's the worst joke on the show.
Oh, man. Let's hear some more moments of the race, shall we?
Yes, let's. First up, and again, many submissions. First up, though, is Thick Broncos.
Yeehaw.
Moment of the race, as a Mercedes fan, I should really just say the 1-2, but gotta be honest, Lewis saying early on that there was something moving between his legs, or is it under his legs? I think it was under his legs. I think it was between his legs. What a monster. Moment of the race.
What a monster.
Goodness me.
Would you mind, Thick Broncos, just re-recording where you've said 1-2 and then just do a 1DSQ version?
Yeah,
It'd be really easy, and then we could just play whichever one's relevant.
Thank you for that, Thick Broncos. Alex C is next.
Hey boys, Alex here in New York City with an early morning race. Good job, George. Way to nurse the tires and way to make a one-stop viable. My moment of the race, I think it's Oscar's pass on Charles. I mean, it was smooth as butter, clean as could be. Beautiful pass, simple, get the job done. Just a shame we didn't have more pace today. Thanks.
Excellent work. Cronenberg is next.
All right. My moment of the race has got to be when I'm pretty sure Crofty said it's the Russell hustle versus Hammer Time. Yeah, that was something. Shout out, George. It's a shame that Lewis couldn't do the same.
Oh, why
I swore at the TV.
Yeah, literally audibly sighed.
I said, shut up, Crofty.
I went with a slightly less nice version of that.
Why's there always got to be some kind of rhyme catchphrase?
Goodness me. Next up is Toto's Pumpernickel.
Good job.
What's up, guys? First time, long time, all that good stuff. My moment of the race was watching Georgie Russ hold off a 7-time world champion for an insane amount of laps on what was extremely used hards. Good job, Georgie.
Bad job, Georgie.
Hey, not Georgie's fault.
It might be.
He needed a bigger thing between his legs.
That's true.
He's driving a 2-pound car out there. It's all on him.
Thirsty Platypus is next.
So,
no.
Do you hear, fellas?
Sorry, let me start that again. Thirsty Platypus is next.
Thirsty here, fellas. Moment of the race when Toto popped his pumpernickel. Also, Checo, farewell from Red Bull.
Ooh. Oh no.
I love, by the way, that they're up there on the podium and the camera pans to Toto Wolff, and he's just sat there on FaceTime alone in the garage at the back. I was just like, don't celebrate, Toto. Just chill out.
Also, when they cut to Toto and he just looked really miserable after the win.
He was like, I'm a Lewis fan. I hate George Russell.
I've also seen Helmut Marko said that's not what we expect from Sergio. He completely collapsed. Savage way to describe it.
I'm not sure you can collapse when you're already on the floor.
Oh, God. Anyway, next submission is from Alan, brackets, not Steve.
Is it going to be a McLaren 1-2 on the podium? Is it going to be a Red Bull 1-2 on the podium? That's what we were thinking all the way through this week. But no, it's Mercedes with a 1-2. George Russell is the first non-Red Bull driver since 2022 to win 2 races in the same season. Not counting sprint races, obviously, there. And oh my goodness, all the talk of him not being able to manage pressure, he holds off the greatest driver of all time with an unbelievable strategy call. What a race.
It's not going to age well, is it?
I don't think any of these have aged well.
No.
Just re-record that with the, will it be McLaren with the 1DSQ? Will it be Red Bull with the 1DSQ? No, it's Mercedes with the 1DSQ. Well done, George, for having a car that's too light. I'm sure it's easily done.
Sure. Should we just start the podcast again from when I did my intro about George Russell winning? We'll just pick it up from there.
The people have been on a real journey with this, haven't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fry up the sausages, Barry.
Hey!
What's up, LB fam? Moment of the race. God, what a race. Got to be Piastri punting his front jack man. Iconic moment. Extra 2 seconds on the pit stop. Oof. Could he have won it? We'll never know. But yeah, huge moment.
Barry sounds as mellow as Oscar Piastri does.
Might actually be Oscar.
It's the same guy. Yeah, fry up the sausages, Oscar. Carlos Hines is next.
Oh, God. Hey everyone, my moment of the race is when Perez absolutely bottled a great P2 start and finishes P8, only 3 spots ahead of his eventual replacement, Daniel Ricciardo. Anyways, everyone have a great day, and cheers, guys.
People seem very adamant that Ricciardo is going in now. I mean, I understand, but we're going to have to break this down in the summer break. But why Ricciardo?
Again, I think I've said this before. You chuck him in now because quite frankly, you lose nothing. Yeah, Ricciardo's only 2 spots behind him, or 3 spots, sorry. Anyway, next up is... Hang on, where's my list? Next up is Joy.
Y'all, it's another George Russell win and a Mercedes 1-2. I love to see it. I would scream, but I'm at my Aunt Beth's house down in Chicago this weekend, and I really don't want to scream in her house. I would pick George winning as my moment of the race, but when the podium was happening, it like clipped over to Toto, like sitting alone in a chair, like on FaceTime laughing with someone. It's like, George is having an emotional moment on the podium and you're just like sitting on FaceTime alone. It made me laugh.
It was actually someone at the FIA, like, we think it's underweight, mate. Okay.
I've just read a tweet because I'm very engaged in the GR weight issue. And apparently he's just walked past someone in the paddock on the phone with a face like absolute thunder. So he's not having a good time, is Georgie Russ.
I mean, valid. Jack is next.
This is Jack Linksboy out of Georgia in the United States. First time submission. Moment of the race is Hustle Russell crossing the line. P1 once again. Yabba dabba doo, baby. Woo!
Yabba dabba DSQ.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Very good.
Oof size large. Finally, it's Bracket Dom.
Hey, Bracket Dom here. Moment of the race for me has to be Esteban Ocon getting a point. Why? Because I don't think anyone noticed that he did. I didn't even notice that he did. I was too enthralled with what was going on up front in the race and then saw, hey, he's somehow gotten to 10th at the end. How'd he do it? No idea. But no one noticed and he got a hard-earned point. So I'm giving him a shout out here for it.
There's a little part of me that wants Bracket Dom to do all of our ag races.
Yeah, that is an excellent voice.
Great voice.
Goodness me. More from Bracket Dom, please.
We will not pay you for the ads, but you could be a part of the LB team.
That is the kind of service we can offer.
That's an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, we do not pay anyone here.
Cool. Get us out of here.
Oh, good. All right. Well, folks, stick around, I guess, because this podcast is going to be an absolute in the bin when Russell gets disqualified. And we've done the whole first segment thinking that he's had a brilliant time. So that's going to be fun. Join us on Tuesday, not Monday, on Patreon for our power rankings. They were coming out a day late, but they will be coming out. So make sure to stick around to hear how we give our rankings. We haven't done a disqualifier yet, so that's going to be interesting if that does come to fruition. Discord, join the conversation if you do want to talk about everything that happened in the race. The link's in the description. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1 everywhere. On YouTube, Late Breaking F1 to watch these kind of things. And you can follow us on Twitch now, Late Breaking Podcast. Loads to keep up with. We're going to be here all the way through the summer break. Do not go anywhere. Do not stop listening. We love you. Thanks for the support. And in the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.